Have you ever wondered how React actually renders something on the browser? And is it the React library, or does React has something else that actually renders a particular element on the browser? So to understand the React 3 fiber in a better way, we will first try to understand the React library and understand how React actually render those elements on the browser. And after going through that, we can better understand the React 3 fiber, and we will go through React 3 fiber, how React 3 fiber renders something on the browser, and we will look into the similarities between React and React 3 fiber. Perfect. So let's take an example of a React component which actually returns a div and an image element. So let me ask you a question. Uh, what's the responsibility of React library in this particular uh, process, and what's the responsibility of React DOM? So yeah, React is just a library that maintains a virtual DOM to understand the differences between the previous state and the current state, and after that it can reconcile those two different trays, and it can understand whether I need to update this particular element on the browser or not. It can then pass that particular information to another library, that is React DOM, and it is responsible for rendering those particular elements on the browser. So talking of those elements, we can have different elements such as div, which is responsible for containing different elements. We can move the divs around, and we can lay out different elements on the page by using the div. And that particular element can have different properties, such as we can position the div, we can add padding to them, we can add margins to them, and yeah, by using those properties we can lay out our HTML page accordingly. Similar to div, we have another element for rendering images, that is image tag, and for text elements we have p tag, headings tag, and all of those stuff. So similar to the HTML document and HTML tags, if you want to render something 3D on the browser, then we will use React 3 fiber. And React 3 fiber has its own renderer similar to React render DOM. It understands ThreeJS tags such as box geometry, mesh, and material tags. So React 3 fiber can understand those particular tags, and it will render a 3D element on the browser. So for example, if you want to render a box on the browser, then we will use box geometry. And if we want to apply a particular material on that particular box, then we will use different materials tags such as mesh standard material. And similar to applying properties on the div element, image element on the inside the HTML document, we can provide properties to the ThreeJS elements such as positioning, color, material, and a lot of like it can have a lot of properties, but just naming a few. Perfect. So after understanding similarities, we come up to a conclusion that React 3 fiber is a separate library which can work in a React spectrum, and it can get the benefits of React library, that is the virtual DOM, and we can organize our 3D scene inside a React component. And React 3 fiber has its own renderer which is responsible for understanding those JSX elements, and it can basically render a 3D scene using those elements. So yeah, I hope this introduction helps, and now we can move on to setting up the application. So we can now set up our React 3 fiber application, and we will set up a basic scene. So for that, let's create a React application using React app utility, and it will install the dependencies, and once those are done, we can open up the project in Visual Studio Code. Alright, so we now need to install the 3 and React 3 library. So we can open up our terminal, and here we can write yarn add 3js @react /3 fiber. Let me just check installation. Yeah, it is this one. Alright, so let's open up the app.js, and the first thing we need to do is to clean this component a bit, and let's retain the div with the class name app. Let's remove the logo import as well, and we can now go to app.css and accept the .app class. We can remove the rest of the classes. Perfect. And now we will start off by putting the canvas component from React 3 fiber. So we can say canvas, and we will import that from React 3 fiber. And the canvas component does some important setup work behind the scenes. So it sets up a camera and a scene, the basic building blocks necessary for rendering. It also renders our scene every frame, so we do not need a traditional render loop. And another thing to worth noting is that the canvas is responsive to fit the parent component. So currently, if we inspect the element, the canvas element, then its height is according to the div element, that is the parent of the canvas. So we can adjust the height of the canvas by applying some CSS on the parent element by setting the height to 100 VH, and we can now see the canvas takes up the full height of the screen. Perfect. So we can now add on a box geometry to the scene, and to do that we first need to add a mesh native element, and the mesh actually requires two children. One is a material and another is a geometry. So we want to render a box geometry, that's why we need a box geometry tag, and we will add in a mesh standard material. So we can now see a box inside our scene, but it appears black because there is no lighting. So you can imagine you are going into a dark room, and if you don't turn on the light, then everything appears in black color. So yeah, for that we need to add in a light, and to add a light we can add an ambient light for now. Let's give it intensity of 0.2 and a color of pure white. Perfect. So it now appears in gray. That's, I guess, the default color of the box geometry, or sorry, the material. So we can now add in a color to the material, and let's apply red, and it can now appear in red. Perfect. And so talking about the ambient light, it is the light that is coming from all the sources, and it usually the use case of this is to provide a dim version of the same light from all the direction. Yeah, so we can now add in a directional light. So you can say directional light. It is a native element that React 3 renderer can understand, and let's give it a color of pure white as well, and let's give the position of, so the position will take 3 arguments. So the argument is one array, but with 3 points x, y, and z. So we can provide 0, 0, and 5. Alright, so it now lightens up the scene, and the final thing that we need to do is currently the perspective of the camera is from the front view. That's why the box is appearing in 2D. So to add in a functionality or an interaction so that the user can move or rotate the box, we can use a helper function from another library that is DREI, D-R-E-I, and we need to install that first. So let's install that. So go to the terminal and let's execute yarn add react 3 DREI. Alright, so the library is installed by now. We can now use a component from React 3 Dry that is with the name Orbit Controls. It is imported from React 3 Dry, and after adding this particular component, we can now rotate our box. Alright, so we can now rotate the box, and we can see the light is coming from the front, so that's why the back side of the box is completely dark. Perfect, so that's it for this video, and see you in the next. Thank you for watching.